So if going to church changes your mood, you feel better about going to church, hopefully worshiping God, family worship, these things change your mood, so they become habit forming. So God designed us so certain things we're more likely to do for survival, for happiness, for brain development. But you can see here, teen cannabis abuse has increased 245% over the past 20 years. That's staggering. So they promised us when they legalized marijuana in Colorado, the promise was that teenagers would not use this drug more. And I mean, I think anybody who's ever knows anything about drugs, and especially marijuana, knows teenagers were going to use it.
Isn't it true that most of the quality of the cannabis is much more dangerous
Absolutely
now than it used to be?
So the marijuana that Bob Marley and Bob Dylan smoked was probably about 3% tetrahydrocannabinoid, THC, the active psychoactive ingredient in marijuana. Today, the strains are as strong as 27 to 30% THC. The test that you know that this is happening is, I'm sometimes driving on the 91 or the 84 freeway, driving in my car with the windows up because it's cold, and I can drive through and I can smell the weed in someone else's car. That is mind-blowing and a statement of the potency of today's marijuana. And if I had time, we'd really go deep into marijuana. But let me hit a couple other things with it. Use of marijuana psychedelics is soaring among young adults, study finds. So, you want to reach young people today, you got to understand they are looking for something to numb themselves. They're looking for an escape. They're not just looking for a high. Marijuana is a unique drug. Some drugs give you a pure high like cocaine. Other drugs like heroin give you an escape. Marijuana, because it works on the back end of the dopaminergic system, meaning not the presynaptic where the dopamine is released from of the nerve synapse, but on the postsynaptic where the receptors are, it actually manipulates and changes the receptors. That's why it's a gateway drug. If you use marijuana, you're more likely to try a different drug and actually get more of a high from it. But it also means that everyday life things aren't going to be as pleasurable either. This is why marijuana causes a condition called amotivational syndrome. Here's the deep thing. So when you get amotivational syndrome, you're not even motivated to find God, peace, or purpose. It's an interesting time we live in when you start looking at all of those pieces. All right, so marijuana use is becoming a new normal among young adults. And I'm using marijuana as an example to make a point about where we have to go for evangelism, because I want you to see what they actually say. So this is from that article. This is the article. This is some words from the article. Cannabis users soon may be a majority among young adults in the District of Columbia and several pot-friendly states, a trend that points to a potential future of destigmatized marijuana across much of the nation. So some people think this is a good thing. More than 2/5 of young men and women nationwide now use cannabis, at least on occasion, according to federal data, a quotient that has risen steadily in a decade of relentless legalization. Much of the trend is driven by young women who have all but closed a decades-long gender gap in marijuana use. So women are using more. I'm gonna show you this is gonna cause some major problems and why our evangelism efforts have to change. So the percentage of adults aged 19 to 30 who use marijuana in the last 12 months, what they do is they go to high school and say, how have you used marijuana in the last 30 days? If you go to the Nader in 1990, right, only about less than 20% of people, when they asked them in high school, would say, listen, in the last 30 days, I've used marijuana. That has now gone all the way up to almost 45%. For women, and a similar pattern for men. This is really scary because, as we just mentioned, that marijuana they used in 1990 is not the marijuana they're using in 2020. And this change is going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. Here's what they say in the article. Young cannabis users outnumber abstainers in Vermont already, where recreational marijuana became fully legal, whatever month this article was written. Young marijuana patrons are nearing majorities in Colorado, where cannabis has been legal for a decade, and in Washington, D.C., where the drug trades on a nebulous gray market. They are also reaching majority in Oregon, where recreational sales commenced 5 years ago. It really helps with sleep. Now look at the reasons young people are taking it. This girl says she takes it to get her supper sleep in Silver Spring, Maryland. Hopefully she don't work at the GC. I don't think she does. One of 5 states with recreational cannabis measures on the fall ballot. She withheld her last name It's great for stress. Look at this. Look at what they use it for. It's great for stress, anxiety, she said. And look at what she says. And my generation has huge anxiety problems. Now, just like Luke 21 says, men's hearts failing them for fear, except unfortunately, rather than turning to God, they've turned to joints and spliffs and bongs and brownies and edibles and vapes and all kinds of stuff. And because, the article lays this out really clearly. This is going to be the majority of young people. I want you to think about it for a second. I wish I had time to really break down what marijuana does, but part of what it really does is it really affects the brain negatively. Obviously, it messes with memory. I think most people already know that. But it also increases your lifelong risk of diseases like schizophrenia. And in acute phases, it can cause acute cannabis-induced psychosis. These are new diseases. Cannabis-induced hyperemesis syndrome didn't exist before they started legalizing. At least it wasn't a common term. So we're watching these changes. And the hyperemesis one is when they start throwing up and they can't stop from the marijuana use. And people say, well, but wait a minute, don't we give marijuana to chemo patients to help them with their nausea? Yeah, that's exactly why if you use it unnecessarily, your body does a rebound and now you get the opposite effect. Like any drug. Plants are drugs just like drugs are drugs. That's where we get drugs from. So it's a rebound effect of the marijuana. So you're looking at a time when you're gonna have increased episodes of psychosis. You're gonna have more people at risk for schizophrenia. You're watching a homeless explosion on the west side of the country. If you go to Portland, Seattle, the Bay Area, LA, tent cities. And a big part of that has a lot to do with the fact that people are exposed to mind-altering drugs in ways, and it's not, and here's the thing. I'm getting off the subject here for a little bit, but let me just say, it's not just that they use marijuana. They use marijuana with alcohol, and it's laced with all kinds of stuff. So it's an experiment, in a sense, that is, you're gonna see that this, and then now that it's reached us in Connecticut, it's been here in Massachusetts, there's no way, especially if you work in mental health, you're not gonna see where this goes. So, luckily, I'll say this, God has the ability to even recover the mind from the damages marijuana does. Part of our health message can actually do that. And we will talk about that at the end if we have time.